You are listening to the Nightline Sports Network, brought to you by Travis Dever and the Dever team, 386-690-1636.
Welcome to the AAC Report, only on the Nightline Sports Network. I'm Jeff Allen. Thanks so much for listening. Coming up, we'll recap Week 1, get you set for Week 2 of the AAC football schedule, and we'll include our spotlight game of the week, Memphis at Navy, as Joe Miller of the Navy Radio Network joins us to talk about that and the midshipmen this season. That is coming up in just a few moments. The scoreboard from Week 1 looked like this. UCF routed South Carolina State 56-10. Duke shut out Temple 30-0. East Carolina came so close in their battle against North Carolina State, where a missed extra point and missed field goal cost them in a 21-20 loss. Navy was defeated by Delaware 14-7. Tulsa was outlasted by Wyoming in 2 overtimes, 40-37. It took Houston 3 overtimes to beat UT San Antonio 37-35. Our spotlight game last week has the Bearcats of Cincinnati falling to Arkansas 31-24. BYU destroyed South Florida 50-21. Tulane was a big romping winner over Massachusetts 42-10. Memphis was defeated rather handily by Mississippi State 49-23, and SMU all over North Texas by a 48-10 score. Let's look at the schedule for Week 2. It all kicks off Friday night, primetime on ESPN2 at 7:30 Eastern, as UCF plays host to Louisville. The Cardinal lead the all-time series 2-1, including last season's 42-35 thriller up in Louisville last season. On the Saturday slate, Temple will play host to Lafayette. That's 2 o'clock on ESPN+. The Owls lead the all-time series 8-4 with 1 tie, and they won the last meeting way back in 1965. Cincinnati tries to lick their wounds against Kennesaw State. That's a 3:30 kick on ESPN+ in the first ever meeting between those two schools. Houston will travel to Texas Tech, 4 o'clock kickoff on ESPN+. The Cougs lead the all-time series 18-14 with 1 tie. Texas Tech won the last meeting back in 2021, though, 38-21. East Carolina will play host to Old Dominion, who's coming up for another big upset of Virginia Tech. 6 o'clock kick on ESPN+. The Pirates lead the all-time series 6-3, and there's been 1 tie, and the Pirates won back in 2019. South Florida will host Howard. That's a 7 o'clock kick on ESPN+. In the first ever meeting between those schools. And another first meeting to talk about, SMU hosting Lamar, 7 o'clock ESPN+. And in yet another pair of first meeting games, Tulane hosting Alcorn State, 7 o'clock ESPN+. And Tulsa playing host to Northern Illinois, also a 7 o'clock kick on ESPN+. We'll talk about our spotlight game of the week as Memphis visits Navy. Joe Miller of the Navy Radio Network is up next to talk about that on the AAC Report.
Hey, this is Travis Dever, Kai's Real Estate, the Dever team, New Smyrna Beach. Your source for real estate and everything else, New Smyrna Beach. Proud sponsor of Nightline. Call me anytime at 386-690-1636. That's 386-690-1636. Let me show you my hometown, New Smyrna Beach, UCF's favorite beach. Go Knights and charge on.
An auto accident can change your life forever. At Chad Barr Law, we are raising the bar on what to expect from your personal injury attorney. Hi, I'm Chad Barr, and I want you to know that our entire team is dedicated to providing you with the representation you deserve in your greatest time of need. If you or a loved one have been injured in an auto accident, call 407-599-9036 for a free consultation or visit chadbarlaw.com. At Chad Barr Law, our clients come to us in need and leave as family. Offices, Altamont Springs.
Looking for more out of your Porsche? Look no further than Flat6Motorsports.com. They have the widest selection of aftermarket Porsche parts anywhere in the world. With over 85 product lines and in-depth expertise, Flat6Motorsports.com is your one-stop shop for any Porsche performance needs. Whether you're shopping for intakes, exhausts, suspension, or tuning, they have you covered. Flat6Motorsports.com is the premier Porsche aftermarket specialist. Check them out at Flat6Motorsports.com.
Time now to talk about our Spotlight Game of the Week as we focus in on Navy hosting the Memphis Tigers. And joining us now to talk about that from the Navy Radio Network, we welcome back Joe Miller. Joe, it's great to talk to you again for another football season.
Yeah, it's great to reconnect as always, and it's great to have college football back, and looking forward to it.
Yes, absolutely. Of course, Navy started off the season last week in a tough 14-7 loss to Delaware, and a game that really was a sluggish affair for both teams, and probably the tail of the scoreboard. You go back to what is the old adage, turnovers usually cost you the game, and Navy had 3 of them, and they end up on the short end of a 14-7 score.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, look, all of last season, Navy had 8 turnovers the entire season, and they had 3 in the first about 22 minutes of the game on Saturday. And it wasn't just turnovers, Jeff. It was turnovers in the worst part of the field, like inside their own 25-yard line. It did not get off to a good start. I thought defensively they played really well, but it's a frustrating loss. I think for Navy going into that game against Delaware, and they new coach for Delaware. Look, it's one of the better FCS teams. Delaware has had some success in the stadium in the past, but I think the Mids were really excited about opening the season at home. No COVID restrictions this entire off season, and it kind of fell flat. And I think there was some frustration there. Obviously they look at this week's opportunity against Memphis to bounce back, but I think there were some good things to take out of the first game. Defensively, they played well, but the glaring turnovers were the big issue, and offensively it was, they had a couple drives, and look, at the end of the day, they were driving there late with a chance to tie it, inside the red zone for Delaware, and they got stopped on downs, and Delaware played them incredibly well on defense. They didn't, we talked about it a lot during the broadcast. They basically, a lot of times when you look at teams and how they play Navy, you expect the team to make a couple mistakes, and it's about whether or not Navy can exploit those mistakes and hit some big plays. And, Delaware really didn't make any mistakes all day. They had a great game plan. They played well, and a very frustrating way for Navy to start the season, obviously.
Yeah, and it's also kind of a weird when that happens too, when you outgain the other team by a substantial amount of yards and still come up on the losing end.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, it's one of those things where I think you can take some positives out of it, but the bigger picture, you never want to lose at home in an opener. And look, the last 2 openers have not gone well. They got blown out 2 years ago by BYU. Last year against Marshall, they struggled in that game. And look, losing to an FCS opponent, even though they're a very good FCS opponent, is never a good look. And that's the tough thing. Like, there's some positives that you can take out of it, but the overall picture is still a frustrating one for them after Saturday.
And of course, what do you make of Ty Lavatai's performance in this first game of the season as he, continues to be the starting quarterback?
Yeah, I thought he did some really good things. I was surprised they didn't throw the ball a little bit more because I thought they protected him really well in the game. The yardage is not too bad. The one thing that I come back to, and it's not just Ty, is that this team relies on a lot of explosive plays, and they just have not been able to get them. Now, part of that, on Saturday was some mistakes early on, and when you have those mistakes early on, I think, especially in a close game, as the game goes along, you tend to be a little bit more, you hold things closer to the vest. And I thought, they didn't maybe try to exploit some of the things that they could have because they were concerned about turning the ball over. And it got better as the game went along, I think. But they got really behind the 8 ball there early on the game. But I thought Ty did some really nice things. It's some of the execution on the mesh points. It seemed like from the more of the issue on some of the running backs or the fullbacks than with what the quarterback was doing in those situations. Kind of tough to tell, and the coaches aren't going to go inside the film room with us and exactly tell us what's going on there. But just maybe reading between the lines there a little bit. But yeah, I thought Ty did some really good things, and it's still, I think for him, one of the things that I look at it, he's gotten off to some slow starts in games, and I think that's, it's a small sample size. He's 11 starts into his career, I think, at this point. But they got to start faster. They got to get going, especially with this game coming up against Memphis. Two teams kind of licking their wounds after last week. I think it's imperative that they get off to a good start, and I think just that confidence that could get this team pointed in the right direction would be huge for them.
Yeah, and of course, here we are in week 2 and already a conference game, so there's an opportunity to get a leg up in the conference here.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, the thing that you will come out of the game, you want to take some positives out of the Delaware game about the defense, as I said earlier, but you also have to remember that all your goals are still in front of you. Contending for an AAC title, winning a Commander-in-Chief's trophy, beating Air Force, beating Army, getting to a bowl game. All those things are still in front of you. Yes, you're 0-1 on the season, but you welcome in a Memphis team, that struggled last week and has not played. They basically, when you look at the series, it's been dedicated or dictated, I should say, by who's the home team. Memphis has not played great in Annapolis. It's been some crazy games back and forth between these two teams. Some big games between them, some exciting finishes. But generally speaking, Navy's won the home games and Memphis has won the road games. There's a couple exceptions to that rule. But I was talking to somebody from Memphis on a Memphis station this morning, and he asked me if it was a must-win game, and I said, I don't know if it's a must-win game because we kind of reserve those for Air Force and Army to some extent, but it's pretty close to that. I think when you look at the schedule and you got to you get a bye and then you go to East Carolina and then you go to Colorado Springs to take on Air Force, you want to get something going in the positive direction for those two games. And I think, I don't think anybody would label it a must-win, but I think it's pretty darn close to that for this team that the focus needs to be there. I mean, I think it's a great opportunity to kind of, get that bad taste out of their mouth and kind of wash that away. You beat Memphis, and you're sitting there 1-1 with a bye week and going to East Carolina where you've played well at in the past. I think you then start to. You start to reevaluate the first couple of games of the season. You start to think a little bit differently, and I think that's a big part of what Saturday. It's the opportunity, really, to do that on Saturday.
Yeah, and of course, you mentioned Memphis. They're licking their wounds. They took a tough one on the chin from Mississippi State, 49-23. They have a returning quarterback in Seth Hennigan, and certainly will be a different test for the midshipmen in this week's game.
Yeah, I mean, how different does Memphis prepare? It's crazy. 1 week you're getting ready for the air raid and Mike Leach, and on the exact opposite next week you're getting ready for the triple option. I don't know if there's a team that has faced a more diverse week 1 to week 2 though than Memphis will face, and maybe not even from week to week the entire season. When you look at what they have to go from 60 passes a game to 60 runs a game on Saturday. So I think that's an interesting thing that Memphis has to obviously deal with. And look, they've been, they basically have played Navy every year. I think they have played Navy every year that the two teams have been in the conference together. So there's some familiarity there as well. But still, I think that's got to be one of the things that Memphis has to concern themselves with a little bit, trying to figure out that. And like you said, sort of licking their wounds. I thought Seth Hennigan played great against us last year in Memphis. I mean, I thought he was terrific. They kind of struggled throwing the football on Saturday night. It was, me, when I think of Memphis, I think of big explosive plays, and they just didn't have a ton of that in their first game against Mississippi State. And granted, look, the Bulldogs are a very good SEC defense. So, but that's sort of how this game has played out is big plays, special teams have been huge. Memphis has I think, like 3 out of the 4 years returned a kick against Navy for a score. So those things, the little things in this matchup over the last few years in the series have been huge. And look, Hennigan played great against us last year. So I think that the Mids are expecting a top-level offensive performance by Memphis coming in this game. And I think it's a great matchup with what Navy did last week defensively. Granted, it's against an FCS opponent, but their quarterback, Delaware's quarterback, was 24 years old. He was making his 18th career start. He had played in an FCS semifinal. A good quarterback. Not Joe Flacco. He's not going to be a number 1 draft pick, but still a very good college quarterback. And I thought they did a really good job against them and their offense. And they try to carry that over into another. Look, in the AAC this year, there's a lot of guys that have a lot of experience at the quarterback position. And Hennigan's just another one of those guys this year. So you look around the conference, and almost everybody has a guy that started at least 10 games almost coming into the season. So when you look at the quarterback position, there's a lot of experienced guys out there. So I think the Navy is excited about what their defense is young, but they really came to play last week. And leading up to the game last week, multiple conversations with different coaches, and they all kind of said, they didn't want to, beat their chest about it, but they thought it was the most athletic group they've ever had here. It was just a matter of fact of them going out as young guys and playing on the field, and I was impressed. I thought they really played well, and they're going to have to play well again against Memphis on Saturday.
Boy, and you did mention something great there about the quarterback play in the ACC. When you look at the fact you guys are going to face Hennigan, you're going to face Holt Nailers, who's been at East Carolina for 10 years. Tanner Mordecai is on the schedule. Clayton Toon is on the schedule. I think I added up and I might have the number off by a couple games, but I don't have my notes in front of me. I think I added it up, and I think they're playing, at least going into week 1, their starters combined, their opponents, the number 1 guy in the depth chart or going into the season had, I think, 189 combined starts. Buckner at Notre Dame was the only guy that they're playing that did not have he played a little bit, Tyler Buckner, but obviously last week against Ohio State was his first career start. But other than that, I think it was right around 180 starts, which was almost double what Navy had as a returning team. So yeah, they get Toon, who has over 30 starts. I think Ehlers has over 35 or 36 starts. So yeah, they get everybody in the AAC with the veteran quarterback play. Yeah. So what do you make of the conference? This year, it's going to be the last in conference for UCS, Cincinnati, and Houston. 3 of the top teams in the league that'll be leaving after this season. So what do you think about this season and what the future holds for the conference after this season?
Yeah, I thought coming into the season, Houston was the preseason favorite. I just really loved their defense. I think as a developing quarterback, Toon's really come along in his career. So I thought Houston had the slight edge. Obviously, I was really looking forward to seeing what Gus Malzahn is going to be like with Plumlee at quarterback and the ability that he has to run and what they can do as an offense. Cincinnati, Ben Bryant, I thought got off to a little bit of a slow start in the opening game, but I thought he played really well in the second half. And Cincinnati, just defensively, kind of weird. They couldn't get a stop there against Arkansas in the last 6 minutes of that contest. But I thought they actually played pretty well. I thought offensively they did play really well. So I thought Houston was my preseason favorite. Speaking as far as what you see going forward is, they played a team that's, de facto taking their place in UT San Antonio on Saturday. I thought that was one of the better games. It's obviously not going to get a lot of, with all the other big games that were going on, wasn't going to get a lot of the limelight. But I thought that was as entertaining game as anybody had on Saturday. And I was impressed by UT San Antonio. I thought, look, granted, things are going to change as they enter the conference, but I thought the stadium was packed and it was loud and it was a great environment. So, I think we're all kind of trying to figure out what this league looks like going forward. But look, it's going to be a loss to lose Cincinnati, UCF, and Houston to the Big 12. And look, I think the other part of it is college football is so up in the air. Is like, is the Big Ten going to take a couple more teams? Are they going to solidify themselves as a super conference? Is there only going to be 2 super conferences and everybody else is sort of knocking on? I mean, there's a lot to happen, I think, over the next 2 to 3 years that will sort of dictate what the conference. If it's status quo, I think that the AAC did as well as they could. I mean, I think the interesting thing is for SMU. I mean, I know they've been mentioned with the Pac-12. Obviously, Memphis is a school that would love to be part of a bigger conference, but I think it's going to survive, and I think they went and got the best possibilities to enhance the conference that they could find, and I thought they made a lot of right choices. And that I think that's all you can do as a conference is try to protect yourself the best way possible. With all that said, Jeff, who knows what it's going to look like 3 years from now? I mean, I just don't. It could be. Again, you could be if there's some sort of consolidation of mega conferences and 32 teams are the big boys, then a lot of teams could be looking on the inside out. I mean, you just never know. I mean, one day it's you go on Twitter and one day people are celebrating like, ha ha, you got left out of this, and then the next day they're the ones saying, like somebody else is saying to them, ha ha, you got left out of this. So who knows what's going to happen?
So do you think the expansion of the playoff that could happen as early as 2024, it's now scheduled for 2026, do you think that has any bearing on kind of easing down the super conference thing or not?
I think it's funny that like Greg Sankey was the one that said, hey, like hold your horses here on this, like getting started right away. I don't even know if it'll be ready for 2026. I think that sort of raises a little bit of an eyebrow to me, but I do think if it's going to stay like status quo, we've got to figure out so many different things. NLI, all these things have to be figured out before we have a true clarity of what's going on. But I do think I've always been a proponent of more playoff teams. To me, it just makes more sense. If you're not going to, I've always said, if you're not going to be, you either need to do it one way or the other. You need to go traditional, old school, or you can embrace. I think they've kind of dipped their toe in it as we've gone along here recently, and I think this is the best way to go. I think 12 teams, you need to have access for Cincinnati, for a BYU. Obviously those teams currently outside but joining the Big 12. You need to have access for those teams. I mean, I know that a couple of years ago when we were 8-0 or 9-0, whatever it was back then, like it just in the back of your mind it's going to be tough to get to that point. I mean, but as obviously you guys know, to be left out of that going undefeated, it just, to me, you need to have some access to it, some availability, and I think this helps things going forward. If we're going to stay status quo, who knows if it consolidates and it becomes 2 separate entities? Who knows what happens then? But I think this is a good first step. I've always been a proponent of it. I don't know. I think it enhances the regular season. I don't think, like, Jeff, does anybody not think right now, like in week 2, that Alabama and Georgia and most likely Ohio State is not going to be 3 of the 4 teams?
Yeah.
I just would be surprised if, so what, when we talk about the sanctity of the regular season, I think some of that, when you look at the recent 4 or 5 years, when you basically have rotated between 3 or 4 schools and then one school has kind of been that lucky dog that's gotten in, I don't know how much the sanctity of the regular season, when people bring that up, is really being affected there. Yeah,
for sure. And what do you see? Do you see any clamping down of the transfer portal at all? This has become such an interesting aspect of the game because coaches have to recruit their own team year after year to keep their guys. And I think it cuts both ways. I mean, you look at, Sonny Dykes did it at SMU, Gus Malzahn's doing it at UCF, using the transfer portal to fortify his team and get the players he wants. But then on the other hand, you got a lot of guys that, they give up and go to another school when things don't go their way.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I don't know. I have a friend that, a good friend of mine that is an assistant at a Division I baseball school, and he says he's like, I can't even keep track of it. I mean, it's like, I don't even know how, like, it's literally something new every day, he would say, and I think at Navy, obviously, it doesn't touch them as much because there's just not a ton. We get transfers in every now and then. In other sports, here and there we get a football player in, and occasionally it happens in the other sports. But because of the military commitment, even if you've played 2 years somewhere else, you've got to reset at the academy. So even if you're academically a junior in college, come to the Naval Academy, but you're going to be a plebe there. You get to play 2 years, and that's it. So it just doesn't affect the Naval Academy that much. But when I look around college football and talk to other schools and talk to people that are taking part of it, I think it's such a delicate balance because they don't want to speak out against it, because if things sort of go awry for you, it's an easy way to sort of dig yourself out of that hole. So I don't think the majority of coaches really love it, but it's a necessary evil at this point. But I think there's a couple examples of teams this year that are going to be fascinating because they basically tried to rebuild their program, like Ole Miss. I mean, they're starting quarterback, they're starting running backs, they're starting wide receiver, all out of the portal. You look at USC, obviously, getting some huge players out of the portal, and how quickly does that all mesh together? Now there's some familiarity with the coaching staff, but I think it's something that's not going to change anytime soon. I do think that the fact that they sort of had these transfer windows set up, and hopefully that goes through, because I think that's important. You need to sort of set a date when you can do it and when you can't do it, because I don't want players week 2 after 2 games, saying, I only got 6 carries. I don't think it's really fair to sort of leave at that point and then still be able to go somewhere and play right away. I think that's so. I would really hope that they do kind of push through these transfer windows, so at least you have a specified time that says, hey, you can make a move here and you can make a move to wherever you want, free, no penalties. It looks like that's going to stay, which is fine. It's still weird to me that guys go from Alabama to Georgia and Georgia to Alabama to Auburn and back and forth, but I guess that's the world we're living in. But I think it's not going to change anytime soon. But the one thing that could make it change, if teams just aren't having success doing it, coaches are going to be like, okay, we got to do something different. We got to find the old-fashioned way of building a team. But I just don't know how you keep 80 kids happy, and that's when there's 22 people that are playing. And maybe you play the next 20 get 15 to 20 snaps. Still have half your team really not part of the game day atmosphere, and I don't know how you keep all those guys happy. So it's difficult. I mean, look at Delaware last week. Almost was entirely 5th and 6-year seniors, which is good for them now. But how do you when those guys actually, after they lose their free year of COVID, how do you build up the team back again? That's you've got a lot of guys that are sitting there that's not going to play this year. It's going to be great for them this season, but it's a tough thing for them to go. I think 9 out of their 11 starters were 5th or 6-year guys yesterday on Saturday. So I think it works, but there's a downside to it as well.
No question. Well, of course, Joe, you have a great podcast you do with your broadcast partner, P. Bedhurst. It's college football. I believe you guys have a fresh episode out today.
Yes, we did. We do top 10 games each week, and then on Monday we send that out on Wednesday or Thursday, and then on Monday we sort of recap things and give you our spin on the college football world.
Yeah, and it's always great stuff. I think it should be required listening for college football fans everywhere.
I appreciate that. I really appreciate that. Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, no problem. Joe Miller, the Navy Radio Network, as always, giving us the lowdown on the midshipmen. Always great talking college football with you. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Memphis at Navy is a 3:30 kick on ESPN Plus as the Tigers lead the all-time series 4-3, and they were winners last season by a 35-17 score. Looking at our players of the week from college football in the AAC, the offensive player of the week is Clayton Tune. The Houston quarterback was monumental in their 37-35 triple overtime win at UTSA, 22 of 32, 206 yards, and with the game on the line, helped the Cougs overcome a 21-7 deficit entering the fourth quarter. He had 2 fourth-quarter touchdown passes. The defensive player of the week, Macon Clark of Tulane, as they held Massachusetts to 17 passing yards and 217 total yards in their big victory there. He had 7 tackles to go with a forced fumble and a key interception. The special teams play of the week, Bubba Baxa Houston, scored 9 points, including a pair of go-ahead field goals after the start of the fourth quarter in that Cougar triple OT victory. Final news and notes when the AAC report comes back right after this.
If you haven't figured it out yet, I love Tijuana Flats. I would love them even if they weren't a partner with us on the Nightline Sports Network. They have all kinds of great Tex-Mex food, and it's fresh, by the way. Made to order burritos, tacos, enchiladas, chimichangas, quesadillas, bowls, nachos, and taco salads. And if you haven't tried the queso, you are completely missing out. It is the best queso that I've ever had in my life. Absolutely hands down. And the sauce bar that they have, everything from wild to mild in there. Absolutely awesome, awesome stuff. Not only do I love the food at Tijuana Flats, but I love the company, a UCF-born company. And they give back to the community with the Justin Queso Foundation. So head to your local Tijuana Flats. Tex-Mex for everyone. Hey Jeep Wrangler owners, have you ever sat in your office at work and watched the rain just pour into your Jeep because the weatherman said that there was a 0 chance of rain? Or you put your doors back on because there was a 100% chance and then not a drop of rain fell? Well, there's a company out there that can help take the worry away and give you the peace of mind to be without your doors. The company's called Life Without Doors. They make waterproof rain curtains and dash covers for Wranglers. Life Without Doors is there to help make the decision to leave the doors at home an easy one. Find out more at lifewithoutdoors.com.
Spice up your company with homemade marketing services from Tasty Gravy Creative. Tasty Gravy serves up the menu of budget-friendly marketing, graphic design, and public relations services customized to your specific goals. Co-owned by a UCF graduate, Tasty Gravy can help refresh your brand, strengthen your online presence, or reinforce your company's message. Contact Tasty Gravy for help with your website, social media, marketing, advertising materials, and more. Visit tastygravy.com.
Back for our news and notes portion of the program. Let's look at the players of the week in volleyball. McKenna Melville of UCF just became the second American player to have 2,000 career kills and is the only active member of the 2,000 kill club currently in the NCAA. The defensive player of the week, Natalie Foster of Wichita State. Women's soccer, the offensive player of the week, Courtney Sabasco of SMU. The defensive player of the week is Abby Soa of East Carolina. The goalkeeper of the week, Maeve English of East Carolina. And the rookie of the week, Megan Smith of Cincinnati. In turning to the men's side, the offensive player of the week, Stefan Afrifa of FIU. The defensive player of the week is Sanj Suber of Charlotte. The goalkeeper of the week is Kevin Haar of FIU. And the rookie of the week, Juanvi Munoz of UCF. Track and field, the men's athlete of the week, Aaron Gilliam of Tulane for his performance in the 5K, and the women's athlete of the week, Claire Meyer of Houston, who had a strong performance in the women's 3K. And that'll do it for this week's show. As always, please follow me on Twitter at JeffAllen_88. And you can follow the Nightline Sports Network at UCF_Nightline. This has been the AAC Report only on the Nightline Sports Network. I'm Jeff Allen. Thanks for listening.